I'm Chris Mcdonough, a retired homicide detective. I've interviewed thousands of people, from serial killers to ministers. Welcome to the interview room. Aloha. Aloha, everybody. Thank you so much for being here, and welcome to the interview room. My family, Karen and I, and D-Man and Buddy, we're grateful that you're here tonight. And I just want to tell you the other night, Dillan threw me a curveball with the tribute to Summer. And quite frankly, I just kind of, lost it for a couple of minutes there. So I apologize for the abrupt ending. And, it's kind of funny because, D-Man, he goes, Dad, he says, you realize you had a lot of people watching that. And I said, yeah, I know. I said, but, we love you all. We're grateful for each of you. And we know why you're here for the same reason, we're here as a family. And that's to help in any way, shape, or form for this little 5-year-old girl missing here in Kingsport, Tennessee. I've just been overwhelmed and humbled by each and every one of you who have been supporting us since this channel started. And if you're new here, everybody knows my MO is, if you're not a member, don't worry about it. If you're a sub, thank you for being here. That's awesome. If you are a member, we're grateful for that. But that's not why we do this. We do this because of our skill set, and we think that we can help. So with that, I'm gonna lay out kind of what our agenda is going to be tonight, what we're going to talk about. But before I do that, I want to give a shout out to a paraplegic, actually an amputee Army vet, Mr. Thomas Skoteric. I saw your note come through in the chat. Man, thank you for your service. And thank you for all of our friends outside of North America, all around the world, whatever country you're at. In fact, let's give Tom a shout out. Just kind of give him a shaka in the chat here for his sacrifice for all of us. So also all of our friends all over the world and outside of North America, thank you for staying up late. Sorry to keep you so late. I literally just got home just got here probably about 2 hours ago after a very long day. Okay, so here's going to be the run. And thank you, everybody, for being classy. And our mods, Miss Sophia, Maui Girl, Mimi J2, Four Sons Mom, and Melissa Hart. We cannot do this without you women. And for that, we are grateful for everything that you give us and your time and your talents. And please be good to our mods. I think we have the best mods, quite frankly, around. I like to make sure that they're taken care of. Hey. That said, what we're going to talk about tonight, right? So first of all, I want to just tell you, I had a very, very good conversation with Don Wells today. We talked for just under 30 minutes, and he called me this morning, and he said, look, I appreciate all the efforts that you're doing and everybody else in searching for my daughter. I appreciate your sensitivity to my wife. He said, but you did kind of break her heart on one thing. And I said, Don, I said, what's going on here with that? And he said, she told you I wasn't in the shed, and I wasn't in the shed. He says, I was at work. He said, you'll notice my truck wasn't there. And I said, okay. I said, I did not know for sure. And so I'm going to apologize to Candace tonight. That was not my intent. And I know Don and Candace are probably watching us this evening. So I just want to make sure that, we clear the air on that. Okay. That said, we shared a little bit about that day for when Summer went missing, and some of his thought process and observations, and he wants to do additional interviews, and he said he would talk to me, but he is concerned that everything he says, he's damned if he does and he's damned if he doesn't. And that is primarily because they have a court appearance tomorrow where he's been told by an attorney that going public right now is probably not in the best interest of the children that they have the hearing. So we're supposed to talk again tomorrow. He has indicated he does want to sit down, but again, I'm going to leave that up to Don and Candace to make that decision. They have sat with the authorities, and of course, my responsibility is to help assist find Summer. Where does that come from? It comes from this insignia here, the Cold Case Foundation. If you're new to our channel, I'm the National Director of Law Enforcement Relationships, both in North America and internationally. So we deal with, right now, we've got just over 100 cases where we have a panel and a bullpen of about 125 experts from all around the world. And our director is Greg Cooper and Dean Jackson. Greg used to run the behavior science unit in the FBI, and he was mentored and worked alongside John Douglas for many, many years. And John was our executive director at the Cold Case Foundation, but has since, he's got into Hollywood right now. He's writing a book, and he's doing a TV thing. So that says we have access to every type of resource that a law enforcement agency might not necessarily have. And if it's a smaller agency, they request us, and or a family can request us. And so you go to the Cold Case Foundation. It's up at the top of my YouTube page. You just click on the link. If you are a loved one, somebody has somebody that needs our assistance, please fill out that form. So what did Don and I talk about, right? So what he mentioned was that day he was in about 40 minutes away working. When Candace called him, he immediately raced home. He was driving the red Subaru. He has a red Subaru, and you'll see it in the last video on the property. And of course, the plate's been blurred out, but and he was going so fast that on a couple of the turns, he said that the car almost went off the road, and he was just just desperate to get home. And he said he got home so quickly, it took him about 40 minutes to get home. And when he arrived, he was frustrated because, according to Don, the law enforcement authorities were not on scene yet. And as a result of that, they went into an additional panic mode because it was his impression that law enforcement should have been there a little bit quicker. That's what one of the frustrations that Don has. The second one he said is, he's repeated this story, many times, and every time he does, that it just keeps getting, crazy in his mind, right? And we talked about his religious beliefs. He's a Seventh-day Adventist. We talked about his past history, and it was just a general overall good conversation, and hopefully he gets the authorization from his legal advice to sit down. He's willing to do it, but he's hoping that he has authorization to do it. That said, the other side of it is I invited the attorneys to be present as well. So remember, I'm able to do that, and so as a result of that, hopefully that invitation will extend itself a little bit further. The other thing that we talked about were the possibilities in relationship to what he was going through in his mind and where he fits the abduction theory. And that comes back right immediately back to what Candace told him and his commitment that he doesn't believe that she would lie to him, and that would cause a lot of problems within their relationship. And so I can understand that, being a husband, but he didn't really want to go on the phone, of course, and you can't blame the guy, right, any further than just kind of laying that out there on that piece of the puzzle. So I asked him to give me a little bit deeper understanding of the abduction theory. And that's the other thing that we're going to talk about tonight. Is I'm going to show you, you remember the road that's down behind their property. Well, I've got film of that tonight, and we're going to go together, all of us as members, or excuse me, as a family here in the interview room, and we're going to walk through what are the possibilities, and then we're going to talk about some of the necessary elements of the victimology, and of course some of the secondary questions that law enforcement has to ask themselves, and that is the why, right? Why was this victim selected? Why this location? And we're going to go through some of those pieces while looking at the geographic terrain. And we have one of our doctors on in the interview room is a Dr. Spencer out of England, one of the most fascinating guys you could ever think of, and I love his accent as well. But just a brilliant man. Now, he has not weighed in on this, but he has trained thousands of people on geographic profiling. In fact, he solved a lot of famous cases in England by doing geographic profiling. So you'll see him on the team members if you're interested in connecting with him. To our UK friends, he's a fascinating human being. And so one of the things we're going to look at today is that possibility of geographic profiling, and kind of connect it to this theory. And I'm going to break down these individual theories in relationship to what's been floating around on the internet, as well as everywhere you can think of. I mean, I think we all know, right? So I'm going to show you here in a little bit some of the geographic area. We're going to talk about it, and then there is also another shed that I saw today. And all of the areas, by the way, I'm going to tell you right up front, have been searched extensively by not only the Sheriff Department, TBI, FBI, and of course the law enforcement search and rescue, as well as Texas Aquarian, those guys with Dave and those folks. So there's been 1,000 resources put into looking for summer. Okay, I think we're at a stage at some point where you have to now step back and start looking at a criminal behavioral analysis and what is the behavior that comes into play here in relationship to why potentially this victim could have been selected. Okay, and which leads me to Don's one of his last comments. And I'm as we sit down, I'm hoping that we can dig a little bit deeper into these ideas and where they're coming from right now. So the idea was, could she have been sex trafficked, right? Could she have been abducted? Okay, now both of those would be abduction opportunities, right? One of them obviously is to put, the child and or the victim into that type of environment for, quite frankly, a financial gain, okay, and sexual deviant behavior in relationship to, people who select children. Okay. The second one was within 3 hours, statistically, if a child is abducted, 2 of those 3 hours almost immediately are useless, because it's usually the parents within those 2 hours, running around just in total pure panic and, just trying to make sense of what's going on. And, I shared with him, Karen and I, our experience, with our own personal family situation. And I kind of empathized with this idea of how everything just, slows down and gets, very, very problematic to think at times and think clearly. So that last hour then becomes critical when a child of 5 years old just evaporates. Okay? So what I want to do again is we're going to approach the idea of, let's talk about, what does a stranger abduction look like, okay, in terms of what are the possibilities. Okay? Now, statistically, a stranger abduction depends on, the terrain, the risk level of the offender, okay, the risk level of, the geographic region. And so a lot of things are taken into consideration almost immediately by the suspect. Okay? And so you have to look at, has the offender been there before? And if so, in what capacity? That's one of the first type of questions that law enforcement immediately has to ask themselves. And then the second question is, right, what is the relationship between the victim, the offender, and the initial contact site? I.e., if it's up that gigantic hill, okay, and it's on that property, okay, was that the original contact site? And if so, then logic leads one into, is the offender familiar with this location? Okay. And so that kind of narrows down your scope of, okay, where do we start? Okay. So I want to show you this road for a second, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to talk about some of the observations that I've made. And oh, by the way, the other thing, I see it floating around that Don in the bedroom down there. So when I went down those stairs and you look to the left, that is the parents' bedroom, and I noticed the TV was on, and it was True TV, and it was one of those shows from Spring Break where everybody was out there, and the girls were lifting their shirts and doing crazy inappropriate things. It was not pornography. I mean, I guess you could say, yeah, that is, but it wasn't hardcore pornography or anything like that. So I wanted to clear that up tonight as well. So when you look to the left and then you look to the right is Summer's bedroom. Okay. So now the question is, in that basement area, we now have to ask ourselves, okay, either A, the suspect was in the house waiting, lying in wait, and that means, that it was not a crime of opportunity, but it was a planned, organized event. So now that, you have two thought processes there now. Is it an organized or disorganized offender? Okay. Well, a child that age, statistically and actually behaviorally, with a sexual kidnapping, okay, that is a very, very, very high risk situation. And if you go back and listen to Candace's interview again, when I asked her, I said, essentially, what were the boys doing at some point in there? She says, well, they were locked in, nobody in, nobody out. Okay. And that door at their kitchen, or, that office area then to the kitchen, does lock. That mechanism does lock. Okay. I made sure to make a note of that. So when the boys were in there at some point, they were locked in there. Okay. Now, I don't know what that means, right? Outside of, Candace, was telling us, and incredibly, right? I mean, I think she's been honest on those things. A lot of it was spontaneous, but that's not why, I'm here or you're here right now. Or our goal here is to logically take a look at how Summer got out of that house, A, and then B, okay, if she was abducted, what were the advantages or the advantage points that a suspect of opportunity or controlled connection to that property had. Okay, so this is why this is critical when we look at the road. So first of all, you'll see I'm right down at the base, and I'm going to blow this up. I'm down on that road, and I'm at the base of the property there. Now, this road right there is an area that I don't know if you can see my pointer or not, but this is the road that is at the bottom of that hill that we saw in that video where, Candace said, down there at that road. Well, yep, this is a possibility that somebody could park there. Okay. So that's a possibility. So what we do is we'll put that up on the chalkboard as a possibility. Okay. So as we go through, Candace's or the Wells house is over here on the right that I'm focusing on, and you're going to be able to see some of the geographic terrain here. You can tell it's extremely dense. It's the woods here. I'm going to show you here in a second. The woods are very, very rough, and there's a steep drop off here as we go through this that causes one to hesitate, right? So the first question that comes to mind is, and put your thoughts in here, by the way. And all of this area, by the way, has been thoroughly vetted by law enforcement, Sheriff's Department, FBI, and TBI. Okay? So I wanted you to see exactly what the terrain looks like even today. Okay? And you can see there's a very steep hill there that goes up, and I'm looking at their property up here, and you're going to see the shed. You'll barely see the shed. You'll barely see Grandma's trailer, but this is the backside. So if a suspect were to have parked out on this road, okay, then he or she would have had to manipulate all of this terrain to get into a position of advantage. number one. Okay? So that question then comes to who else is familiar with this property? And that car, by the way, went flying by me. And so you can see there's a little creek here. Give you a little more, a better eye understanding. So this is the view. Now, right up there is just, I didn't do a good job of zooming in on this, but yeah, I got a better shot up here. But you'll see Grandma's trailer, you'll see Don's shed, and you'll also see, the tip of the house. You can't really see the tip of the house, but you can see, in the background there. So right there, in that area right here is where Grandma and his trailer, or Don's shed is, and then Grandma's trailer is right over here. So can you see down to the road? Absolutely. Can they see up? Was the next question I wanted to answer. If a suspect is lying in wait down here for the opportunity to strike, okay, number one, okay, you have to think to yourself, well, A, they have to conceal their vehicle because this is a well-traveled road in this area. Okay. B, okay, if so, okay, then you have to make sure that nobody recognizes your vehicle in that area. And so C, then what is the familiarity of a random situation where a vehicle is utilized? Okay. Now, the dog trail ends, towards the other road, and I'm going to show you the other road. Okay, where searchers mentioned that their the scent, the dog scent, stopped. Now, early on in my career, best job in the world, by the way. Before I went into homicide, I was a dog handler, and my dog's name was Irk. We used to call him Irk the Jerk. Okay, and he was scent trained. He was a Schutzen 3 out of Germany, and I don't speak any German other than dog commands. Okay, don't tell my wife that. Okay, but where I'm going with this, when a dog is put on a scent and they're put on a leash, okay, and you hook their leash up and you pull their nose down, and in German you say Zuck, and you ask the dog, or Varan, find the man, right, and then the dog goes out after you can scent the dog by stuffing a t-shirt or something to that effect, or bring the animal into an environment where the victim was last seen. But you always want to ask that question: where was the victim last seen? And in this case, it appears that she went into the basement, okay? But nobody saw her in the basement. So to bring a dog into that environment is potentially risky, because if that was a potential contact site, then of course you don't want the dog contaminating it. So typically then you would take an item out of that environment and the dog would then start on the scent. So the canine teams and the SAR, the search and rescue, somewhere around here, and I'm not exactly sure where it's at yet. I'm hoping to ask Don, to show me where the end of this dog trail is, and if any of you know the exact spot of where this dog trail is, please put it in the chat so I can take a look at it over the next couple of days here. So that said, you can see now that right there is the trailer. Right there is the back side of the trailer. You can clearly see it right here. This is Grandma's trailer. Don's shed is right over here now. So there is a visual up to the Wells property, with one exception. At the time, you'll see these power lines back here. There was a lot thicker brush a month ago. And as Candace told us, there was, a bunch of guys that were, working in the tree industry. And by the way, there are trucks out there still working. And shout out to Davies Trees, tree trimming service. And so you can see where, they are back there. They were back there because there are tire tracks. There's a variety of other things. Now, I did not go on Don's property without his permission or Candace's. So I stayed up on the road, but you can clearly see there was, a lot of, traffic back there at some point, it looked like. Okay. So I'm just going to move you down the road here a little bit. This is all on her side. I'm going to show you the other side here in a minute. And I may even fast forward to some of this, but I want you really to have a really good understanding of the backside and the hilly area where it looks like it would probably be the most logical contact site for a suspect. Okay. So then the next question, as we're looking at this, then comes into what is the relationship between the victim, the offender, and this initial contact site. Kind of like in the Elizabeth Smart case, again, I always talk about, the victim continuum, right? The victimology continuum, because, the theory is the lower the level of risk, the higher the probability that the offender knows who the victim is and has targeted the victim. Okay? So you look at, again, I'm going to go over this one more time, where you look at circumstance, situation, environment, low, medium, high risk activity. And so you have to ask yourself, what's the circumstance? Okay. Now, in this case, you have a 5-year-old little girl who came home, went into the house, came out of the house, helped with some flower pots with grandma and mom, went back into the house, escorted by mom, okay, went with the brothers, hung out there, and then at some point separates from the brothers and goes down underneath those stairwell and goes into that basement area where all of her toys and items are. Okay. Now, that's what we know in relationship to firsthand information from Candace. She tells us this, and, she showed us this. And so at that point, then, when she goes into full blown panic mode, okay, is there a way that a suspect or a perpetrator could come into that house? There are only 2 points of entry, what we call POIs. Okay. The first one is logical, through the kitchen. Okay. Extremely high risk, right, for an offender who is basically on the hunt. Okay. The second one is that basement door. Okay. Now, you heard Candace say she can't specifically recall if the door was locked or open. Okay. It also has to be taken into consideration, in my opinion, of whether an offender could coax her to the door to open it. Okay. Or if it was open, would he go and I say he because in this type of case, your suspect 99% of the time is going to be a male. Okay. It would be very rare in an abduction scenario where a female commits this type of event. Okay. So that's the other question. And then, so the other piece of this is, could Summer, we'd have to know her height and her weight. And then, of course, you'd have to measure to the door to eliminate the possibility that she could have opened the door independent and then, gone out that side door as a result. Now, one thing to talk about so I interviewed a child serial killer, one of he's pretty notorious. His name is Wesley Allen Dodd. He was in Walla Walla State Prison and for kidnapping and murdering children. And I got into his head for in 1992, just before he was at the state of Washington executed him, and we spent a significant amount of time together. And I have all of those interviews, by the way, that at some point maybe we can break down. They're pretty graphic, so I want to be sensitive, to some of the victims' families still to this day. But I'm working through, cutting some of that down. But here's what I learned from him, and many others have learned from him, and others like him. This type of risk that he would have taken, okay, probably would have involved a public space, not a private property. Okay. Now, when I use him as an example, okay, because he is the type of high risk offender that would potentially take a chance at this type of crime. And how do we know that? Because his last victim, he actually tried to kidnap him out of a movie theater in the bathroom. Okay? And as he was running out with the victim, then of course the clerk saw it, and they chased him down the street, and his father caught up with him. And as I, said, a while ago, they gave him a little public relations. Okay. And then they turned him over to the authorities. Okay. They turned him over, and thank goodness, because he was a really, really dangerous person. So the higher risk of the level, the lower the probability that the offender is known to the victim, and that he knows the victim. Okay. And so this is a victim of opportunity. And so here are the two examples, right? The circumstances are she's at home, like we just talked about. Then the situation, she's down in the basement. Now, we know this, according to mom, okay? Because the boys tell mom, she's in the basement, mom. And mom instinctively goes downstairs looking for her, okay? So this is what we would call the contact site, okay? And so now we have to ask ourselves, why? Okay? Why does an offender pick this contact site? Okay? And so there's a whole risk, or there's a whole series of questions that we can, go over. But at this point, we don't know what those answers are. We can surmise, we can speculate, we can guess, but I don't do that here on the interview room, right? And I try to be very straight up with everybody. We hear it hopefully from the individuals involved themselves, like Don today, because I asked him another follow-up question. I said, Don, what is your thought process in this abduction theory? And he shared with me, and by the way, he said I could share this. I told him I was going to be on tonight, and I also assured him I didn't record anything. And he appreciated that and thanked me for that. But I asked him, I said, tell me why your thought process is on this abduction theory. And he says, well, one of my fears is that I just hope that she's not deceased and buried somewhere. Okay. And from his perspective, you can understand that, right? Because that's what he's afraid of. Okay. So that said, I wanted to then see, okay, well, what's the risk level here of this victim? Okay. Well, the circumstance is very low. The situation, very low. Okay. And then, of course, the environment is low to medium. Okay. But it still puts her on the other side of that pendulum. So that means the lower the level of risk, the higher the probability that the offender knows who the victim is and has targeted the victim. Okay. So this would potentially be a situation where if it's a stranger abduction, then this is a targeted stranger abduction. And now then we start asking ourselves, okay, then what is the initial contact site and the initial suspect who would have familiarity with that contact site. Okay. And so some of the questions that need to be eliminated is, has the offender been there before? And if so, what capacity? And I'll give you a perfect example, Elizabeth Smart. And Don and I talked about Elizabeth Smart, where, and by the way, he was in Utah at the time. The guy who kidnapped her was there, and in fact ran across him where what Don told me that this guy came up to him and put his hand out and had asked for money. Okay? And Don gave him money, and so I asked him, I said, well, tell me the correlation then, why, this would be, something in your mind, right? And, at this point, he really doesn't know. Okay? I figure as we talk, hopefully in person, a little bit deeper about this, then we'll be able to break down some of those ideas and that hopefully he'll share with me. Okay? And so if we look at the Elizabeth Smart case, the authorities were looking for a registered sex offender named Riki. Okay? And by the way, I also had been speaking with the Smart family during that incident and had advised Ed Smart to keep Elizabeth in the news at that point. Okay. But one of the things also that we were talking about is this victim continuum. Okay. And, she's sleeping in her bedroom. And at some point it came to be known, while the authorities were focusing out here, okay, and that's not a bad thing, okay, but while they were focusing out there on this registered sex offender named Riki, the guy was walking around, with her completely, covered in the San Diego area, as well as up into, where she was eventually recovered. Okay. So that's a good example of this guy who ended up being the suspect was a handyman who had come into the environment and became familiar with the children, okay, and Elizabeth specifically. Okay, so is this a situation like that? Okay, well, I don't know. Okay, at this point, okay, more data needs to come in. Okay, however, I wanted to then break down, okay, what is the risk level that this suspect is taking. And so I'm going to turn this back on here, okay, and we're going to take a look at what the potential risk level could be. Okay? So now this is going backwards. Here you can see another area that potentially somebody could park on. It is a very well-traveled road. Okay? This is a field area that if you have to look for inbound, outbound escape, egress, okay, you have to think about, okay, once you have this 4-year-old, 5-year-old child, okay, and you have a car, well, you have to get the child to the car, okay, number one. And people forget that these types of crimes are very difficult for the offender as well. Okay? In Dodd's case, when he's coming out of the bathroom with the child, he punches the child in the stomach to knock the air out. But the boy is able, and you can see this car flying down the road there. Okay? The boy is able, okay, to yell, which caught the attention of the clerk, which led me to Miss Robin about her personality, about Summer's personality. There's been a lot said that Summer was a quiet girl. Okay? No, Summer was not a quiet girl. Okay? She was a little girl that didn't talk much until she wanted to. Okay? And then Miss Robin was sweet enough to tell me, and by the way, she was wearing a necklace that Summer had given her. And Robin is the woman at the their church here, and she talked very highly of this child, about the love that this child gives, and those kind of things about Summer, and we'll get into that in another place, because I just want this idea, presented here, that helps us understand some of the dynamics, not only of the potential suspect, okay, but what is the victim about. So we have Mom, who gave us, a whole layout on what she's into, Paw Patrol. And by the way, I'm going to dedicate this to Chase on the Case, okay, for Summer. And Buddy's going to be our Paw Patrol for this little girl, okay? So then now the second piece of this then is, tell me a little bit about her, Robin. So I talked to Mom, I talked to Robin, and Robin, describes her as a very, vivacious little girl who has this energy. She has this energy about her. And I asked her about, some of the videos in relationship to, what we see at church. And she said, she always wanted to touch my face and move me over to get my attention. She likes to look people right in the eyes when she talks. So she reaches up and she pulled me over numerous times. Okay. But, I got, when she was describing her, I was living in my head the videos of watching her in church. Okay. And I asked her, I said, well, what about, this wandering, that goes on? She goes, well, it happens to, a lot of the kids at church, and their pastor's policy is, children are children, just let them be. Okay. So those dynamics of Summer spirit, okay, in those situations, I asked her, I said, what are some of the things that you were working on in a church environment, in their church environment? And she goes, reverence. Okay. And I said, okay, I can really see that happening. Okay. So now we learn a little bit more about the victimology, potentially, of who Summer is. Okay. And now we have to ask ourselves, okay, is she just going to, not say, do, scream in any way, shape, or form? Okay. I don't know that answer yet. Okay. But I think all of us probably have a lot of theories, a lot of questions that hopefully, we can work through, right? So the next piece of this then is, what's the risk level, again, for the suspect? And so this is across now from the property, and this is a view from the property side now, going back up again. Okay. And I wanted you to see this is another area that potentially a vehicle could park. And then if you pan to the left, right there was a street. Okay. Now, I was really curious about this part of the road. So, not knowing, right? Not yet, all of us. Okay. If we look at this, then is this a place that a suspect could park? Well, let's take a look at it. So now I'm going to give you a vantage point, okay, leaving, okay, the area where I parked, right down on the road behind the Wells property. And now to the left here, I came across something that I just said, whoa. Okay. And this is the whoa moment. Okay. This is a shed that is at the bottom of the property. Okay. Now, why do I say this is a whoa moment, right, for me? Okay. Does this shed offer an opportunity of concealment? Okay. And then, so the next thing I wanted to know, and by the way, these sheds are all over that area, and there's kind of this idea here. If you've grown up in the area, I heard somebody mention that if you grow up in this area, and I actually heard it on Trisha's show from Web Sleuths, where the caller said, look, if you know this area, there are many sheds around here, and kids growing up in their teenage years used to just, as something to do, go through these sheds, and that they just go through them. Right now, would an abductor hide out there? Statistically, probably not. Okay. Is this a place that immediately after an abduction, if that was the route taken, that a suspect would gain more control over the victim and utilize this as a advantage of cover and opportunity? The answer there is potentially. Okay. So right now, this is the bottom of their property, a little bit towards Dawn Shed, and then down the ravine, and you get down into this area here, and this is where you run in to the shed. And I'm going to take you now up the street. So one of the things I wanted you to see here was the rest of the terrain. Okay. So again, put your mind in the perpetrator for a moment, and that's what we teach in criminal behavior analysis. Don't become the perpetrator, but put your mind for a moment and say, okay, is this up on the board? That is it even possible? Okay, well, it's quite a schlep to get up that hill, to be honest with you. And then you have to make your way down with a child. Okay, and the other thing about this, it's the opposite direction of where that basement door is pointing. Okay, on the other side of the woods, okay, it's just like like you were in the Marine Corps and you're climbing the worst mountain after MCRD training, right, from as a young 0311, and you're humping that hill. I don't see a suspect doing that with a child, not. And so now I'm going away from the property for a second, and I'm going to show you coming back. This is the area where all of the searching's been taking place. You see all the forest to the left. So there's a lot of nooks and crannies here that you could get into. So if she walked away by accident, right, that would be another theory that we'll talk about over the next time here coming up. And so you can see this is a long way. It's about 1.5 miles away, and then you start seeing houses on the left. Okay, in this area, that there are multiple what we call RSOs, registered sex offenders. Okay, however, again, you're looking at this and saying, "Wow, I got to make it up that hill." Okay? I have to be, really, as they say in Hawaii, akamai, very aware of everything we're doing. And then again, now I'm coming back, and you see and there's a really cool horse that came running out of one of the pastures here at me, and I hope we got him on film. But the suspect has to be thinking, okay, if I'm going to pull this off, okay, man, I got a lot of moving parts here. Okay, so that's when you start asking yourself, okay, what are the dynamics then? Again, about what's the capacity, in what capacity was somebody at that property? Okay? And did they have access to that property? Okay? the more I am learning here, the more I am leaning towards the idea that access to that property is critical, okay, for summer to disappear. Okay, and now I don't know exactly what that means. Okay, but I can tell you that the more I look at this, and this is that hill, as we get closer to that other shed, this is a hill that goes up towards their property area. Okay, now is this in a realm of possibility? Everything is in the realm of possibility, especially when you're dealing with a 5-year-old missing little girl. Okay, so then you have to use, this method of logic in relationship to, okay, what do we know about these offenders that do this? Okay, and then what do we know about the contact site and the geographic terrain around that would cause them to elevate their risk level. Okay, and so this is why I'm showing you this. Coop and I and Dean and others from the CCF are examining this stuff pretty closely, and at some point we will work for or excuse me, not work for, but weigh in on one of our thought processes. And I know that Davies Tree Company had been interviewed by TBI and others, and so I'll just leave that there and let the authorities weigh in on any of that stuff. So now I'm going back. As you can see, there's that little pull-out area where I was immediately near this guardrail coming up to the right. This is all the Wells property up there. Okay, so you'll see the guardrail. Now this is their property, all the way on the right. Obviously I stayed on the road. Okay, and so now the second potential contact site, or at least where we want to do an analysis on, does this suspect have a connection to this geographic region? Okay? Now remember, this is the abduction theory that we're talking about here. Okay, and it is just that. It's a theory. Okay, and we have to explore it in order to eliminate some of the other possibilities. Okay, so this is why it's important to be there, see it, feel it, smell it, just kind of sense it. Okay, so this is the house on the corner, and this is their street, Ben Hill Drive, right there. Now the other day I took you up this road, and it is, as you get up there, okay, when you get to their house, they have a chain across the bottom of the driveway. And as I mentioned, Candace got out of the car, walked over, unhooked the chain, threw it off to the side, and we drove up their driveway. Okay. Well, so if the suspect then was on foot, okay, now they have 2 points of entry. Either A, up this road, walk up this road by leaving their vehicle parked at the bottom. B, drive up this road, okay, but you can't park anywhere unless you keep going way up the road. And then you have to go up that hill to their property. Okay, that's a very tough task. I mean, I did it in a truck in 4-wheel drive. Okay, that's because the road itself is just tore up from all the rains where everything comes down from that mountainside, and poor Candace has to deal with driving, manipulating her car up there. Okay, and that's probably why they have the all-wheel drive Subaru. Okay, shout out to Subaru. Okay, good job. Now this is then the next piece is, okay, if the suspect does choose this, could it be, and I just saw in the chat, and it's a great concept, could this be a situation where somebody who's not, mentally stable could be hiding her in the woods. And that was the other reason I wanted to show you that shed. Okay. Even though it's been searched, the next question is always, is it likely that the offender could return? And then you have to ask 3 questions: why, when, and in what capacity. Okay? So if this suspect, like the Elizabeth Smart situation, where he hid her in the woods, okay, they were literally, okay, with all the searches going on, right under their nose all that time. Okay. And, so this is, not out of the realm of possibility yet. Okay. So we need to keep an open mind, okay, and we need to think through this. Okay. So now let's go back to looking back up into, the road here. Okay. So looking back up into the road, we can clearly see this is that house on the left. I wanted to show you a little bit more about the dogs, because these dogs over here, and there's a pen right there. Okay, well, they were over there. They're laying down. You can't really see them, but when I drove by today, they were docile. Okay, they weren't. The other day they went ballistic. Okay, but today maybe it was the heat, because it took it out of them. So that's another consideration of why the weather that day is important. Are the dogs responding correctly? I can tell you when I got up on the Wells property, at their invitation, that those dogs lit up. I mean, they came out of the woods. Okay, and I even, Candace and I laughed where I told her, I said, you need a doggone zoo license up here, because there are critters everywhere. And what happens is cars, get down to the end down there and they just let their pets go. And all those dogs are going up into those woods and they're running into the other dogs that are already up on the property. And, they're kind of congregating as a little mini pack going on here. Okay. So now we want to go a little bit further down the road. I want to show you this side of what this suspect has to choose from. Remember, what I'm thinking while doing this is not how this happened, okay, but why did this happen? Okay? Why did the suspect choose this road? Why did the suspect choose summer? Why did the suspect know these circumstances, i.e., mom was going to be home and within 2 to 5 minutes or thereabouts, this child would be abducted. Okay. Why did this suspect know that? Okay. And so we have to reverse engineer this through a behavioral analysis aspect. Okay. And that's why it's important, again, to understand all the escape routes and all the entry routes. So you have pre-incident, incident, and post-incident, and then you can identify all the behaviors within those parameters. Okay, so now we keep moving forward. This is the shed. I wanted to get a little bit closer. So my sweetheart got out of the car and did not trespass. We went right up to the sign that says no trespassing. Actually, I don't think she even went that far. She zoomed in. There you go. And this is wonderful camera work from the love of my life. Okay. Okay. This is, I think it's just awesome. So you get an idea of what the shed thing is like. And again, this is one of many. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to pull this back down and let's talk. So right now, we have this idea that Don is, convinced that his daughter was abducted from the property. Mom is convinced that Summer was abducted from the property. He's not sure why this would have occurred. He does feel that either A, she's being held somewhere, okay, and maybe abused. And it was interesting in some of his earlier statements. He does mention, I see her, kind of in a dark place. Okay. Now that could be regress memory because, if you don't have the lights on and you go into a room, well, of course that could be a descriptive, comment that, that it just kind of correlates. Right. And then he's worried that, her life has been taken and that she may be buried somewhere. Okay. So these are the kind of ideas and questions that need a lot more analysis. And this is why interviewing in this type of case is critical. And to have, critical interviewing skills, they have to be applied, correctly, or, you end up in a scenario that you end up wasting a lot of time because there could be, a scenario that could exist. Okay. So that, tomorrow, I'm hoping we get a chance again, to sit down again in terms of discussion. He wants to do it in person. I want to do it in person. And we're just hoping that the court scenario kind of takes its course tomorrow. And he did not want to jeopardize that again, by, sitting down today. Okay. So that said, so let's go ahead and talk about, or let's take some of your questions here. Again, I apologize for the other night. I kind of, stopped too early, and that was not intentional, and I did not want to be rude. Now, the difference between a question and a spontaneous, concept. Okay, let's do questions, and we'll see what we got. So and this thing is going. By the way, this chat is going 100 miles an hour, so I have to slow it down. Okay, percentage in the possibility. Shannon says 64% of children that are abducted in a public space and typically riding their bicycles. Okay? Statistically, those are the numbers. There are less than 300 children a year randomly abducted in the United States in just a, out and out, stranger abduction. It used to be 100. The Center for Missing and Exploited Children has upgraded those numbers most recently. And in fact, I'm doing a course on that, and I'm going to do it actually here. It's free, so don't panic, okay? But I'm going to lay out the grooming tactics and those types of things because that is my expertise of, criminal behavior analysis in relationship to criminal pedophilia and those guys that choose children for sexual gratification, okay, during the commission of murder, okay? So that's kind of my craziness, okay? So now, that was a great question, thank you. Is there, CSI says, is the cave under the house large enough for an adult to hide in? Yes, that is a great point, thank you. Yes, it is, okay? Let me go here. Yeah, I've got a lot of questions of what do I think happened to her. My role right now in my heart is to just, put information together. Okay. I'm not going to write a prescription until I know what the diagnosis is. Okay. So, but I appreciate the question. Margaret K. And good one. Okay. Let's see here. This is a great question too. And they're all good questions. Janice Flagg says, would an abductor likely have lived there at one point or made deliveries there? That is a great question. And that goes back to, again, in what capacity did an offender potentially have been there? This is a good question, or a good comment too. So yeah, that is a possibility. It is a possibility. Absolutely. So what do you think about the neighbor, Mr. Dodd? I think TBI has probably lifted him up by his ankles and see how many quarters came out of his pocket. I know that they have interviewed him, and I can't tell you what they're thinking on him. And that brings me another thought. Yes, I am friends with Dave Roush, okay, who is the head of TBI. I'm not here working for Dave Roush. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. So let's stop that rumor on the internet. Okay. I am literally here because I saw this little girl, who's, in her eyes, she just had this, spirit about her that said, this is what you do. You need to get over there. And I brought the resources of the Cold Case Foundation into this idea here. So, if something, by the way, does not fall into place, then if it does go cold, well, guess what? We've been here from the beginning in terms of the side, on the side. So let's clear that up. If you could, folks, I would greatly appreciate that. Let's see here. Did the tree service folks use their driveway? If not, do we know how they got their equipment on the property? Well, again, when you get a chance at the end of this, go back, look at that geographic, area that they had to get into. So I think if you turn down Ben Hill, there is a egress that they potentially could get in there to clear all the tree lines off of those power lines. That's what I saw them doing. They were also, going up side streets, but I didn't see them driving up. I don't see how that truck, quite frankly, would have made it up that driveway. It's just too big. Do they have a bathroom? Yes, they have a bathroom. It's upstairs. And yeah, what other questions do you have about the basement area? And let's talk about that as well here. Let's see here. How long? Whoops, where did it go? Sorry, that was a good question. This one here, Chris. Who fits the criteria, known assailant or unknown, in your opinion? So I don't want to weigh in on that yet. I have my theory, okay. But again, there are still a lot of information that I don't have, and so I want to be very cautious here. That I'm not jumping to conclusions, not jumping to thought process of A, B, C, or D. I want to use logic, and then the evidence that matches that logic, and then follow where that logic and evidence takes you. Okay. Right now, to spout off this person or that person is, quite frankly, not only destructive, okay, but not professional and or experience. And when you're dealing with a rural area like this, it's not like you're sitting in a metropolitan area somewhere. I mean, Dallas is much different. The city of Dallas, for an example, is much different than Kingsport, Tennessee. Okay, and so these are two different mentalities in relationship, even potentially to the suspect. Okay, and so you have to have a wide understanding of these folks all across the United States, not in one geographic regions. So I promise you, Lady Q, at some point you will hear when I put a bingo card on, and throw the bingo cards up, folks. Those of you who have been with me from the beginning, the moment I knew that Barry Morphew was the guy, I threw a bingo card on him. Okay. There's another guy that I've put a $50 bingo card on right now, and you all know who that guy is in San Diego. And so we're just going to see where that one's going to go. But right now I'm batting 1,000, and because there's a third one that I put a bingo card on, and that got resolved. So I'm not there yet, okay? But I certainly will let you know. Let's see here. Tree service folks stole from our property after watching are coming and going. Okay, Sweet Pea. Okay. Thank you. Let's see, Chris. It was the look in her eyes that brought you here, I think. Thank you for all you're doing. Thank you. A little appreciate that. Let's see here. A question here from Heather. Ryan's just curious. The creek that runs their property line, if it flows how I think it should be, the same creek line that runs the Lone Star Road, is that correct? Yes, it's coming the other way. Correct. If I'm correct. You'll see the water, by the way. Go back and look at the video a little bit closer, and you can actually zoom in on that water. I'm sorry I didn't do a good enough job on that for you to kind of give you a better perspective of that. See? Okay, where we go. Luann's got a bingo card for 100. Yeah. Let's see here. This is a great question. Now, and I'm going to measure this on a response that Dave from the search team gave recently. And his response was, or his statement was, one of our searchers ran into a bear. Okay. Now, that's in the middle of the day. Okay. One of their searchers ran into a bear. So is it possible at this point? Anything's possible. It's on the plate. But again, we have to ask ourselves then, how does she leave the basement? How, that is still the big question. Even mom is saying, I don't know how she left the basement. Okay. Okay. So we'll just kind of let it right there. This is Lou. Thank you so much. This would fall into the victimology, right? So, and of course, as you guys remember in the victimology, we always want to ask, age, race, what's the adjustments, their intelligence level, what's the domestic relationships around the victim, at this young age, what's her lifestyle like? What is her routines? This is a perfect example of it. What's her sleeping routine? That day, Candace tells us that they've been swimming and she was out all, with mom. And by the way, I have confirmation that they were in, Grandma and Candace were in one of the local stores. And so, actually I've got it from a couple different stores. And I've kind of got a good timeline of, when, based on the 911 call, that is, public information, as well as, kind of piecing it back to when they believe they saw them in the store. Okay. And one of them was where the prescriptions were filled up. Okay. And that timeline is narrowed down to about 1:33 p.m. So if she's, running around with them at that time, okay, and now I don't know what that means from that point forward, without seeing, some of the other information that it would be available. Okay. But from that point, is she exhausted is the question. And which leads to, I think where you're going, why did they make it so difficult to get up and go downstairs in the basement? Because that stairwell was built on in the basement area with an addition above it. And so they had to create a stairwell, and it's a very narrow gap stairwell. But, you know, Don is a pretty big guy, and, you know, again, I'm no Dunkin' Donut, but, you know, I got down there, you know, for lack of a better term. Okay. Maybe I should get Dunkin' Donuts. Yes, you know, don't hammer me in the chat now. I know you guys out there. You know. Okay, so let's see here. Do you think the risk, Nancy Dyer, do you think the risk of abduction is higher based on the fact videos and photos were constantly published on social media? That is a great question. And yes, of course, that always raises a risk level to, you know, but in this situation, you know, she's 5, and now the question, you know, has to come up with, okay, well, where does she live, right? And so, you know, a suspect would really have to break down, you know, the idea of, okay, I know where she lives. I've done my homework, and they literally would have to, you know, go into a hunting mode. And one of the questions we always ask, and I've always asked, you know, hardcore homicide detectives, right? I had an opportunity years ago to meet a guy by the name of Jigsaw John, and he was probably one of the most notorious homicide detectives actually in the country. Okay? He was with LAPD. He spent 44 years, I believe, in homicide, and I met him 2 years before he passed away early on in my career when I got transferred into the Bureau. And here was the question I asked him. I said, John, I said, you know, you've been doing this forever. What's the one piece of advice you can give me? Okay. And he looked at me and he said, take your time. Something to that effect. I was like, that's it? And he looked at me and he shook his head. He says, yes, just take your time. Now, this guy was involved in the Black Dahlia, okay, back in the day. So, you know, when, as the old saying goes, you know, when E.F. Hutton speaks, you listen, okay? And then he followed it up with, right after that, he says, be teachable. Okay? And he essentially, he said, look, if you think you know everything, then you might as well transfer right now because you're going to know nothing until you're, you know, until all of the facts and the data comes in, right? And once that information comes in, and then you become a better investigator, and then you actually start to solve, you know, some, you know, crimes. Okay, so go look him up. Do a Google search on Jigsaw John. Okay, that's kind of a cool little thing. Okay, let's see her. Why did Candace go in the basement through the small opening rather than the back door? Found that strange. Candace said she's very low key, but always posting. Well, the reason she went down there is because I asked her to show me. And so she went down the exact same way she believed in my thought process that Summer went. Okay. In fact, it was me that suggested, why don't we go around outside? And she was kind of baffled by that. With, well, I'm showing you, you know, what happened, what I believe happened. Just, you know, why wouldn't you come down here? She qualifies it. If you listen to the video, she says, Don, you can make it down here. You can make it down here. So I didn't find that was, you know, scandalous in any way, shape, or form. And so I followed her down there. Okay. And, you know, there you go. Thanks, Sophie. It's great seeing you too, by the way. It's great to have you here. Anyway, so I didn't think that was, you know, off the wall. When I got down there to the left, it was dark. You know, there weren't any lights on. There was just the illumination of the TV. And I think we've cleared up what was on the TV. Okay. It was one of those spring break shows. Okay. Where, you know, like MTV shows, but it was true. It was True TV, I believe was the name of it. Trust me, I wrapped that up here real fast. And you saw there was reflections on the windows, you know, and of course all of her toys were there, and down below, there were a lot of, and I didn't do a good job of filming all of the toys down there, but there were a lot of them. And in the corner was a lot of Paw Patrol, looked like Dolly stuff. And, on the other side of that rack where the TV was, she had all of her, princess stuff. And there was a bunch of that down on the lower rack as well. So there were, a lot of girly toys there. And then there was this persona of Paw Patrol. I think that's, if we want to know who Summer is, that seems to be her baseline here. And, so I don't know what the maturity level is in relationship to understanding those concepts. Maybe there's some, experts here with the children that can weigh in for us on, where that mental capacity would be at this point. But anyway, that was a great point. Thank you so much. Did I observe the camera? I'm very suspect of this. No, I did not. I did not see the camera. Where was it? And put it into the link here, and I'll go back and I'll take care of it. But I didn't see it. I'm being honest with you. And so, thank you for pointing that out, Ra, the creator. I appreciate that very much. How about the shed behind the trees across the yard from the kitchen? It was barely visible. Yeah, and this is the shed that I had made the comment. I wasn't sure if, Don had been in there. And this is what, why we had the conversation, why, it's kind of the conversation starter, icebreaker. Okay. And, he called me and we discussed it, and he said, look, I wasn't in there. And, you didn't believe Candace is basically, that I broke her heart. That was, his comment. And I apologized. That was not my intent, nor will it be at this, at this juncture. Paw Patrol means one of us. No, it was not pornographic material. Well, I mean, no, not as, depends on how you look at it, right? It was one of those shows that when they lifted up their shirt, they blurred it out. And it was a bunch of spring breakers, showing how they get drunk and act stupid. Okay? Heather, please discuss the wildlife around the area and the possibilities. No one has talked about the possibility of wildlife in the area. Yeah, so again, thank you, Heather. Dave, one of the searchers who was just recently here, said there were one of his searchers ran into a bear. Okay, and if you are from there, if you are there, then tell us about that information. Okay, tell us about that information. Yeah, exactly. I'm just reading some of these as they come. My understanding, by the way, let's talk about the red truck for a moment. So I've heard two different things. I talked to, when I interviewed with Miss Robin at the church, one of the things that she pointed out on this flyer is this red truck that TBI was looking for, apparently has been found, according to her. I've not heard officially, so let's keep our, being vigilant about that. But she said she was told that vehicle has been eliminated. That's on that flyer. So before you take that as gospel, go and confirm that for yourself with TBI. Okay. So we've got smoky blue days. We get wildcats. I've never seen a mountain lion. Oh boy, here we go. Here we go. We know where that story comes from. Thank you, Smokey. That comes from Colorado, and our boy Barry who, we had a bingo card. I think our subscribers and members had bingo cards on that one a long time ago. Yes, I know that they are Ashley, AB. Do you know if Ellie's question are still around? If so, do they have credible alibis? I don't know about the alibis. I definitely know they have been interviewed. Okay. Let's see here. I don't know, folks. Coyotes. Yeah, lots of coyotes. And with those dogs up there, that's a really good, really, really good thought. Remember, coyotes will go after dogs too. And so that could actually be a draw for those guys. Okay, let's see what we got here. On the TV is most shocking, busting the buff, not girls gone wild. Okay, there you go. I'm glad you know more about that. Then I appreciate that, brother. Let's see here. What about the speeding yellow car? Okay, not heard of that. The one that was coming at me, I don't think that was yellow, but is that what you mean, Boxer Girl? Not heard of that one yet. Okay. Yeah. Well, I would tell you this. If there are cameras on that property today, okay, and they're visible, okay, you've fallen off a turnip truck as law enforcement if you're putting them out that everybody on the internet can see them. Okay, so if those cameras are there, I definitely would not put that in the law enforcement category. Let's see, it definitely bears in that area. Parody. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. What's this? I'll stop repeating my question. Stephanie, what's your question? I'll pull it up as well. We'll see where black bears. Let's see. Black bears are docile unless provoked, and they run away. Okay. Thank you. But this is definitely bear country. It's cat country. I'm sure there's all kinds of critters out there, and there's all kinds of bait on that property with all those little kittens, the dogs. If a wild animal really was interested, potentially as to come in for a donut or two. I'm going to use Dunkin' Donuts again. Okay, then yeah, of course those animals certainly would attract them. Let's see what we got here. Okay, what is your question, Lillian? Let me go back and look at it. Sorry, I've got 100 of these things going, so I will answer your question. If somebody can find her question for me, put it up. I appreciate that. You're behind by 5 minutes. Yeah, we had to slow the chat down. We've got almost 16,000 people in here, and so that's a lot of questions coming at us. And by the way, do we not have the greatest mods? Give them a shaka or a thank you. Would greatly appreciate that. Okay, so let's see here. And there it goes. Chris, what's the wildlife possibility out there? Okay. A lot. But Ruth here says if there was a bear or an animal, the dogs would have been barking. Yeah. This one here, there was something small and black on one of the basement walls that some are saying was a spy camera. No, that was a receptacle. And I was just doing a general, you'll notice I panned the walls just to see if there was any type of, something sticking out that was obvious. A pack of dogs would keep most animals away just from the scent. Okay. Thank you, Grunge Truck. I appreciate that. This is great. So, Chris, we keep, Elvine, Ash, we keep hearing about Candace's timeline that she passed a polygraph about Ron. Has the steps been verified about what people saying the boys were with Ron, an alibi confirmed? Well, according to, Candace, she took 2 polygraphs. The first one she couldn't do because she was emotionally upset, and that makes sense because a polygrapher and or a CVSA examiner, which is a computer voice stress analysis, they would tell her, you know what, we need to calm down before you do this. So she said she took it a second time, and according to her, that you've heard her say she passed it. Okay, that's what she's report. Okay, thank you for that. Let's see her. Yeah, Ginger too. Well, so wouldn't it be Krispy Kreme in the South? Yeah, maybe. In Texas, Krispy Kreme's all over the place, right? Let's see here. I think animals attack, if they were, in mating season. Janet says, Carnage Street. I think an animal is a likely here as in a morphic case. You see remains in evidence. Yeah, thank you. Yes, I agree with that, 100%. A $50 bingo card on that one, bud. Good job. Yes, there are bears. Thank you. I totally agree. Carnage Street. Let's see here. I give up taking donut questions. Good night. Don't go anywhere. Let me have your question. It's every couple of minutes it's going by here, so I'm sorry about that. Okay. All right. Did H do a polygraph? I haven't had a chance to ask him. Was her tracksuit at home? I don't know. In Florida, was the grandmother talked to, and where is she now? I believe grandma's in Wisconsin. I do not know if she's been interviewed yet. I will ask Don if I speak with her tomorrow. And speak with him again tomorrow. Do you think blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to give that comment yet. Okay, everybody's up, what are the odds of Summer being taken out of the state? Great question. Statistically, again, we're doesn't look good if that was the case. She's going to be within a mile and a half, typically, in a case like this. Okay, if this was that problem, statistically, then the offender is going to be in a certain geographic distance. So here's the question. Thank you, Dream of Five. The tree workers may have been a draw for the dogs and stopped them barking as a perp. Alternately, barking would not be noticed if they were barking at both. Yep, good point. Could be. Absolutely. Good point. All right, well, here's the deal. Tomorrow we got a lot more coming. I want to tell you, each and every one of you, I'm grateful for you. I appreciate your patience and keeping it classy tonight. If you're new to our channel, thank you for subscribing and being here. Share this out with everybody and, hit that bell. My family and I are thankful that we have an opportunity to help here. And so I'm sorry I can't, I've got literally thousands of questions coming in, but we'll pick it up tomorrow or the next day. Depends on how things go over the next couple of days, but let's keep this baby in our prayers. Let's take care of each other, continue to be, better, all of us better tomorrow than we were today. And let's just be good to each other. And thank you guys. I will see you tomorrow. One of my favorite things to do here is go to Hawaii at the end of this these broadcasts. So take me to Hawaii.
Hard working every day, I'm stressed out, 24/7, babe, no timeouts, wish we could fly away.